Welcome to another episode of Chad Sports Talk. You don't know, my name's Chad. Take a dive into sports. Welcome to the recap of Week 18 of NFL action. That's right, the final week of the NFL games has been concluded. The playoffs are set. There's still a possibility for a neutral site AFC Championship game. And I'll go to all this and how well I did. And I'll spoil you now, I did pretty well. But before I dive into all that action, if you could go ahead and give me a thumbs up, especially like the content I provide you. I really appreciate you two guys. It helps promote this channel out. You also subscribe. Love you guys reviewing my work, and I love you all for doing that. And I mean, you subscribe because do a dime. It helps me provide more entertainment value for you. And the NFL kind of did, this flex scheduling, kind of look at some ways to highlight key aspects like the Sunday night game, the two on Saturday, a couple of big ones on early and late games on Sunday, to really get you looking into it and kind of, feel the excitement in the final week of the season. And all in all, that was a pretty good weekend of football action. Now, looking over these games and looking at my picks, previous week I was 9-6. It was kind of an off week. Well, it was a bad week as well. Because you all know about the Damar Hamlin situation last Monday night. In case you don't know, Brady Tube's out. He's conscious. He's fully awake. He's actually watching the game on Sunday. And I'll get more of those details a little bit later. But everything is going the right direction for him. So it's positive how well the vast majority of the sports world and the U.S. as a whole has backed him. There's been a few naysayers here and there. And you can get that anyways. I mean, it doesn't matter what type of situation it is. There's always a few out there. But overall, majority of us all support Damar, show them love when we can, and I'm glad to see that he's making a nice recovery. But go over my picks. Like I said, 9-6 last week. This week, the last week of the season, was the most successful week I've had this entire season. I went 14-2. That's right. I picked 14 correct winners. I only got 2 wrong. I'm present. I was like going through this and I was going to win. I'm like, this is going to be unreal. I'm going to go undefeated in my last week, and then my bubble burst. Let's just go ahead and dive into Saturday's action, and we kick it off in Las Vegas, where the Chiefs are coming to town to take on their longtime arch rival Raiders. Instead of making another start, and he was all right for the most part. It's because the Chiefs' defense is not the greatest in the league, so he actually had some opportunities to showcase himself, but it's just too many different ways Mahomes can hurt you, too many different players that can catch the ball or run the ball that can hurt defense. And he was just to pick apart the Raiders throughout the game. This is the aspect the Chiefs had to get you win this one, their home field, unless they face the Bills. You can probably I'll get into that a little bit later in this video, but it was pretty much easy going for the Chiefs. Went up 24-3 at half. That was it. Chiefs rolled to a 31-13 victory. Pretty much needing the Derek Carr tenure in Las Vegas, I believe. I think he's going to be out. And we'll see where the Raiders go from here. And the Chiefs right now are locked as the number 1 seed in the AFC. Then Saturday night, we head down to Jacksonville, Florida, where the Jaguars playing host to the Titans. This is the win to South and host a playoff game. Can the Jags go 9-8, or did the Titans go into the playoffs as 8-9? And the Titans were, I think, all in all, was kind of a underdog in this aspect, because I looked at the way Jacksonville was playing, the way Trevor Lawrence has really blossomed himself as a star quarterback. Kirk has really been his number 1 target. The defense, young, hungry for action. Anthony for running back, another good aspect for that Jacksonville offense. But Joshua Dobbs was making the second start, and he actually had a decent showing against Dallas. So maybe, the Titans might have something brewing here in this Will Travel veteran who's really hasn't had a chance to really showcase himself. And Derrick Henry actually had some good yardage. He actually had nasty stiff arm. But every time he does these nasty stiff arms, he's tackled almost immediately afterwards. So it's like rest of the buddies go realize, oh, you can't do that to my guy, and then go after him. But Henry had over 100 yards, but it wasn't really enough. I mean, Tennessee was up early. Not really early, but they were up. It kind of maintained a positive lead. I mean, 13-7 at the half. 16-10 heading into that final frame, but that was it. That was that final frame that's really solidified everything for him. And it's basically just only 2 turnovers. But Dobbs did get sacked 4 times, and that was one of the key aspects in this game. As Jacksonville, coming from behind, beat Tennessee 20-16, clinching the South, and hosting a playoff game this weekend. And then we head to Sunday. Well, let me get this Band-Aid ripped off really quick. Let's go with Chicago with playing host to Minnesota. I expect a little bit more from Chicago. I expected a lot more wins from Chicago, should I say. It's my preseason, I think I had them going 9-8, but not making the playoffs. So this is definitely a bad season for them. However, looking at this, they have, almost $119 million in cap space. So I'm saying it's kind of a low-level free agency period could be this year. So having this much cap space with the talent being out there, they may overpay for some people. It always happens during free agency. They always overpay for someone. There's a possibility to get the number 1 pick, too. With Minnesota, they really didn't do much. As, Minnesota was just, there's nothing that they had to do, really. I mean, have a chance of possibly making the number 1 seed. They had a lot of help. Philly lose, 49ers lose. Then they could possibly get in there. And they kept Kirk Cousins in there for a little bit, but after a while, they went ahead and just benched him and put in Mullins, put him the rest of the way in, and it was just not a pretty showing for Chicago. Minnesota beat them 29-13. Get them a good position in the playoff standings. Then we did head down to Atlanta, where the Falcons playing host to the Buccaneers. And this one I went with the Falcons because I was like, Tampa Bay has nothing to play for. So why really spend a whole heck of time putting all the starters in? You're trying to get players healthy for the playoffs, not get them hurt. Especially when you have, a old veteran of a quarterback in Brady. I mean, he still started because it's Brady. More like you just want to keep things fresh. That's basically what it was. I mean, it was just enough to kind of, wet his whistle, do some few good plays here and there. But after that, once Brady and the starters benched, Atlanta took over, hit them 30-17. But that's because all the starters got benched. But Tampa Bay, perfect position. They're in the playoffs anyways, 8-9 now. So they go as a losing team. Doesn't really matter. They're in the dance, and then they will be hosting Dallas in that first round. So that should be very interesting in this rematch. Then we head to Buffalo, where the Bills playing host to the Patriots. And I said that once DeMar FaceTimed the team, and they're all relieved, and you could tell, a huge weight was lifted off their shoulders that they were going out there and dominate New England. Not so much. New England put up a fight. They were not going down. DeMar tweeted out before the game, showing his love for his teammates, kind of game time, throwing up the little heart symbol with his family right there. Opening kickoff. Returned for a touchdown. Opening kickoff, the first play of the game. That's something they wanted to do. They wanted to return the ball for a touchdown for DeMar. They did that. Not once, but twice. And it was amazing. It's like the fact that this whole scenario up in Buffalo, they had spent the time honoring the training staff of the Buffalo Bills, which saved DeMar's life, which was epic. Both teams were in the middle. I mean, if you look at pretty much everywhere this weekend, a lot of teams were together celebrating DeMar. You saw signs in every stadium for DeMar. So it was a special time frame. New England gave Buffalo all they can handle and then some. Buffalo had to find ways. Josh Allen was still throwing bombs to Stephon Diggs. Finally got him for a huge touchdown pass. Threw one for Josh Brown that he doesn't normally get it. He actually gave that touchdown to the trainer that provided CPR to DeMar. Buffalo did everything they had to do. They ended up winning 35-23. Up the number 2 seed. And if them and Kansas City face off in the AFC Championship game, it will be neutral site. Because the whole game of last Monday night between the Bills and Bengals got canceled. With that being said, they're still not up. It's still up in the air who's going to have it. I think Las Vegas has volunteered their stadium for that game. Like I say, you could probably throw in Atlanta or Indianapolis. But somewhere in between the two. Don't have Buffalo go halfway across the country. Even though Las Vegas would be a perfect place to play a game. Don't get me wrong. But with that being said, Bills are in, and they're my pick to win the Super Bowl anyways. They're my pick in the preseason to win the Super Bowl, so I'm behind the Bills all the way. Then we head to Cincinnati in the jungle where the Bengals play. Playing host to the Ravens without Lamar Jackson. And Baltimore did not have a fun stay. If Baltimore would have won that game, there would have been a coin flip who hosted next week in their rematch. Cincinnati won, doesn't really matter. And that being said, it was all Cincinnati. They've already locked up the North. It's basically just trying to solidify the third place finish. And they were just too much for Baltimore. Who knows if Lamar will be ready for the playoffs, but Cincinnati rolled 27-16. Then we head to Indianapolis, where we end this season with the Texans and the Colts. And they started the season with those two, and then they're going to end the season. Could have been another tie. I think that would happen. I think I slapped all of them. But somebody was going to win. Also on the line is the number 1 pick in this upcoming draft. If the Texans lose, they're the number 1. If they win, the Bears are number 1. And in this game, I picked Houston because, well, you had to pick someone. And it just went kind of back and forth. Indianapolis did have a late lead and kind of put my whole picks up in the air. But Houston got the ball. They were down. Okay, well, let's back this up a little bit. They forced Indianapolis to kick a field goal. They only gave them 31-24 lead. Or the Texans didn't get the ball on their own 17. Then they just marched down the field. Mills was being very efficient with everything. And they just ate up the clock, just kept going and kept going, and just kept battling around. I mean, they had they got over to 18 where it ended up Mills getting sacked, which kind of put a little hamper of some things there. But Mills was able to find Atkins for a touchdown, and then they decided to go for the win. They're like, we're not going to go for the tie. We're going for the win. And they went for 2. Mills threw to Atkins again. 2-point try successful. Houston now up 32-31 headed to the final frame, and they just ran out of time. I mean, Hinger was trying his best to trying to make a comeback, but no dice. As Houston won their final game, beating Indianapolis 32-21 or 31, excuse me, giving the Chicago Bears the #1 draft pick, and sitting there with could ask for King ransom. Shortly after this game, the Houston Texans didn't fire Lovie Smith. And that's got me scratching my head. Now, I was scratching my head because they hired him in the first place. Ever since he got let go by Chicago, he has not been the same since. But this man had nothing in the cupboard to work with. His talent was mediocre at the best, and they could not produce much. I mean, there's a few games here and there that they stepped up and tried their best, especially against Dallas, Kansas City. But all in all, they had nothing to work with. And you get someone, a bunch of dull blades and broken tools and whatnot to tell them, make a masterpiece out of it, and then turn around and fire them because they couldn't do it. You can't do that. I mean, this guy had nothing to work with. You turn around and can him. It's not his fault. It's the GM's fault for creating this team, expecting someone to win with it. This team had trouble playing in the MAC or the Pioneer Football League. I mean, this is how bad this team is. So it's nothing against Lovie Smith. I mean, I didn't think the Bears should let him go when they did. Once the Bears let him go, his coaching kind of went downhill a bit. But yeah, Texans. That's probably why he got fired, because he ended up winning against the Colts instead of tanking the game to get the #1 draft pick. I don't know. There's a lot of some fishy things there in Houston, but let's go ahead and move on down to Miami, where the Dolphins were playing host to the Jets, and Tua once again is out. Thompson making another start. Flacco is the starter for the Jets. And this was a fugly game. The Jets could not beat the third-string quarterback because Tua was out, Bridgewater was out. The Jets are on their third-string quarterback with Flacco, but the Jets had the better defense. But the Dolphins' defense is right there with them. It was a field goal fest. And that's all it was. I mean, it was just a fugly game. Fugly. Now, with the Patriots losing earlier, the Dolphins only thing they had to do was to win. But the Steelers were looking at the Jets and rooting for the Jets and screaming Jets during their game. And they just could not do it. I mean, Flacco was horrible. I mean, there's no question about it. He was horrible. Thompson was doing what he can just to, after multiple punts, I mean, it was like four straight drives ended up being punt, 2 per each. Miami was able to get the ball, and Thompson was able to make a drive. Actually, there was a penalty on this drive that helped set this up. When Waddle got horse collar tackled. Of course, it's a penalty. And getting injured a little bit. Added 15 more yards. This will allow Miami to get a little bit closer to where they had to go. Got up to the Jets' 32-yard line, and Sanders able to hit a 50-yard field goal for the 3-point lead. And the ensuing drive, they were trying something. I don't know what they were trying, but they were trying to do some trickery plays, and the ball rolling out of the back of the end zone, giving the Dolphins a safety as the Miami Marlins beat the New York Mets 11-6. That's right, another baseball score. Um, yeah, it's just one of those games. But yeah, Miami ended up winning 11-6, booking their tickets to Buffalo. Good luck with that one. Then we head down to New Orleans where the Panthers came to town. This game really had nothing going for it whatsoever. I just kind of look at this one as these teams just going bunch of bad blood between them. It's going to be a defensive showdown because both the defenses are really good. The offenses are me. Darnold and Dalton are decent quarterbacks. They have decent running backs. Receivers are all right. I mean, all in all, the offense looks. Both offenses look decent. A lot better than Houston. But I was giving this one to Carolina because I was giving them Carolina a bunch of love earlier, and they kept, failing. So I figured, give them one more shot, and then doing that one. It's funny how it's a three-way tie behind Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay finished the division 8-9. All three of the other NASCAR division teams went 7-10. The Panthers beat the Saints 10-7 in a very fugly game that really had no meaning to it whatsoever. But it makes that NFC South division final standings look really weird. We had the Pittsburgh where the Steelers were trying to avoid Tomlin having a losing season, even though weeks ago I said he would. And will be his first season with the losing record. Yeah, not so much. Playing host to the Cleveland Browns. The Browns were trying their best, but they're just not cohesive enough, in my book. Like I said, they show blips here and there against Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is I think, missing a few key pieces here and there to really solidify themselves probably to the next level. They're still kind of rebuilding. But at the same time, the Jets and Dolphins were playing. Steelers were probably scoreboard watching, and they're making sure they were doing their part. 10-7 at the half, 20-7 in the third. They're looking at us like we have our opportunity. The Jets can actually pull it off. But, they ended up winning 28-14. Dolphins ended up winning towards the end anyways. But Tomlin has yet to have a losing season. Steelers finished 9-8 and just missed the playoffs. But yeah, it's just one of those ugly things. And then we had to do Mile High where the Chargers came to town. And I said the Chargers really had nothing to play for. They really didn't. But they still started the starters, which ended up costing them one of their players. I forgot who was the one that got injured, which could affect them in the playoffs. But Denver was hanging around. They were forcing issues on them. And they were doing just enough to kind of irk the Chargers. And that's basically what Denver's been doing most of these games anyways. They always seem to find ways to kind of stay in them and then just lose them towards the end. Or they just don't show up at the beginning. But ever since I got rid of Hackett, they've been doing a lot better. And that was because there's a lot of talent on this team. It really is. There's talent on this team to be had. And that's why I think a lot of people had a higher expectations for this team. I had higher expectations for this team. I think I had them winning the division. And they failed to do so. But after a while, the Chargers finally benched their starters. Denver ended up finishing and beating the Chargers in this game, 31-28. It didn't really matter. Like I said, the Chargers were in the playoffs anyways. It's just more of a positioning for the Broncos in terms of drafting. Or should I say, for Seattle to draft, because it's Seattle's pick. Then we head up to Philadelphia, where the Eagles playing host to the Giants. This is what's a time frame where the Eagles needed to win this game, to win the division, and get the number one seed. Hurts was actually back in the lineup. He needed this game as well to kind of get back into the swing of things. And he looked a little rough. Of course, maybe not 2 weeks. You're going to look a little rough. That's why you needed this game. The Giants were benched everyone. All their main starters were benched. And even threw out the third string quarterback as a starter. So he made his debut. He actually had a rushing touchdown and a passing touchdown, so good for him. The Giants just did not want to go away. Their defense held Philadelphia to field goals most of the game. Jalen just couldn't do much. He definitely was in pain. So now he's got this game under his belt because Philadelphia still ended up winning 22-16 despite a late Giants charge. I mean, but there's question marks now in Philadelphia. They showed that they couldn't win without Jalen Hurts. In this game right here, they couldn't take out a third-string quarterback. So there's definitely some question marks that I think the extra week will kind of help them. But could the Eagles be one and done? It's a possibility, but they end up winning 22-16, clinched the East. Once again, different divisional champ in the NFC East, number 1 seed, so we'll see what happens here. We had the Santa Clara with the 49ers. We're also playing the exact same time as Philadelphia, and they're hoping for a Giants win. And they can win. They can take the number 1 seed. And they were hosting the Cardinals. The Cardinals don't want to play ball. They were actually looking at this game, trying to compete for a bit. They were definitely in there for a little bit. It was 21-13 at the half because Arizona scored first. 49ers came back. Arizona countered. But Brock Purdy had a very good showing. Again, 3 touchdowns altogether. This was J.J. Watt's final game. So unfortunately, he could not win his final outing because the 49ers was just way too much. Ended up rolling past Arizona 38-13. Number 2 seed, thanks to Philadelphia's win, and makes things a little tenuous for the Cardinals in the offseason because is Kingsbury out? There's question marks at quarterback. There's a lot of things in the offseason for Arizona, but yeah, 49ers end up rolling 38-13. We have to Seattle, where the Seahawks need to win this game to keep their playoff hopes alive. Playing host to the Rams, who had a very horrible season this year, many parts due to injuries. But the Rams weren't going away. I think Bobby Wagner had a special desire in this game to kind of prove the Seattle organization wrong in a lot of aspects. And they were in this game for most of it. It was 13-6 at the half. And being 16-13 after 3. Seattle ended up getting the only one to score in the fourth quarter. Even though there's a bunch of missed field goals between both teams in that fourth and overtime period. But it was a overtime winner by Seattle, winning 19-16. Getting to 9-8, and 1 foot in the door for the postseason, all dependent on Sunday night's action. And this would be my last victory for the week. Because then we head to Washington, where the Cowboys came to town. I thought, okay, the Cowboys will come in here. They're going to dominate, then rest all their players. Dak had one of his worst games ever. It was, I think he had thrown 2 pick sixes. He had more picks than he's actually played games this year. One of the part of the worst showings by a quarterback since I think Namath during the merger. It was a bad performance by the team, even by the defense. The defense couldn't do anything. They allowed a third-string quarterback, Howell, mess them up. The Washington had no business really doing this to Dallas, or Dallas had no business letting the Washington do this, but the Commanders just took charge of this game, routed Dallas 26-6. That's right. I call this a rout. This was a complete embarrassment by the Cowboys. And what does this mean for the playoffs? They got to take on the Buccaneers, and they play like this against Washington. You can't do that with Tom Brady. He will light you up. We'll see what happens. But yeah, Washington finished the season strong, 8-1, but they got some question marks at quarterback still. So we'll see what happens with them. And then we go to Sunday night. Aaron Rodgers, Green Bay Packers playing host to Detroit Lions. Detroit realizing that they were eliminated because of the Seattle win. They could have gone in here and kind of go, well, you know what? We don't care. This is not how the NFC North plays. Detroit's going to go and look at this game. It's like, no, we are going to take them out. We're going to keep Aaron Rodgers and the Packers out of the postseason. That is our goal. And that they said it. Campbell said it. I knew this was going to be a close game. I really did. It was going to be a Mason Crosby game winner that sent the Packers to the postseason. I knew this was going to be a close game. Detroit is not a pushover anymore. And Goff has resurrected his career, basically. After leading the Rams to the Super Bowl and just kind of laying the egg against New England, he kind of just faltered away and got traded to Detroit and just kind of went neat last year. He resurrected himself this year. Having St. Brown as your receiver kind of helps you out a bit. And they have a pretty good running duo back there as well with Swift and Williams. It was a interesting showing, this, to tell you the truth. It went back and forth really for most of the game. Detroit just wouldn't go away. It was 9-6. No touchdowns that first half. And it took it to the second half where they finally got some touchdowns into them. Aaron Rodgers actually passing for one. Jamal Williams ran for 2 for Detroit, by the way. But Detroit was able to edge out Green Bay 20-16, beating them in Lambeau, and eliminating the Packers from the postseason, sending Seattle to Santa Clara. Interesting aspects in this game. Kirby Joseph has intercepted Aaron Rodgers 3 times this season. That's right, 3 times. I think it's like a rarity for that one, because he has two interceptions in Detroit. Technically, it should have been 4. One of them got reversed because of Detroit penalty, and that was another thing. The penalties on this was just atrocious. Just some of the most dumbest things I think I've seen a lot of these players do. There was, now I'm trying to remember the guy's name. There's actually a couple of them on this particular play that could have got ejected. Now this is the incidents where the Lions running back kind of got bent backwards because it was a forearm to the helmet that didn't get called. That's targeting. So it kind of bent the running back in half. So when the trainer's going on there, and he kind of put his arm out in front of Walker, kind of, hey, let me get through. Walker then used 2 hands to push the trainer. Not hard, but enough to move the trainer. Then the trainer turned and looked at him, like, what the fuck are you doing? And then number 5 did a body check on the guy. Kind of little shoulder toss. This game was very ill officiated, I think. There's a lot of aspects kind of been done. So a few people are like, why was he ejected? Well, because he pushed a player that's not a football player. Same thing if you push a ref or a coach. You get ejected. This is not something you do. You don't take your aggression out on a non-football player. And then there's even another incident where Douglas just kind of walked up. I mean, LaFleur called a timeout, and he just went up there and just grabbed the ball from the center, or tried to prevent the center from doing that. And I'm like, this Green Bay team went lost it this game. And the discipline went out the window. Doing stupid things. I don't know what needs to be done on the defensive side. I don't know if you kind of look at the coordinator and kind of go, what are you doing, dude? Because you get a player ejected, the other one trying to prevent a snapper to snap the ball. I mean, watch that. I was looking at it, I was like, what's going on? Nudging trainers, pushing trainers. I mean, this is just, especially after last week, you're pushing medical staff. Yeah, there's something wrong in the water in Green Bay. There's questions right now in the offseason. Was this the final hurrah of Cobb and Rodgers? Rodgers still has 2 more years under the contract. So, I don't know. There is definitely something wrong in the air in terms of what's going on in Green Bay. But the playoffs are set. Definitely a lot of interesting matchups coming up. It'll be a super wild card weekend. That's why there's a Monday night football game for the wild card. And then we go back to normal. But I'll lay out those games later on this week. As I was about ready to wrap up a video, scrolling through all the feeds, Kingsbury has now been fired as the Arizona Cardinals head coach, which I kind of think that was kind of coming, and he's 10 months into his extension. So, boy, there's something wrong out there in the waters of Arizona, too. Also, the general manager, Steve Akeem, decided to step away from his position in order to focus on health. Now, that could be the case, so I'm not going to doubt that, but he's been targeted quite a bit as well for some of the woes the Cardinals have faced this season. Coaching vacancies out there, you got Denver, you have Arizona, you got Houston, which I don't think anyone's going to take Houston. If they do that, they are just out of their minds. Carolina, Indianapolis. There might be a few more coming down the pipeline. Maybe Dallas, if they go out early. Maybe the Chargers, they're out early. I'm just kind of throw those out there. But, yep. Kingsbury out as head coach of the Cardinals. Smith out as the head coach of the Texans. We'll start the coaching carousel very, very shortly. You can see how things go. But those are my picks. I went 14-2. Did quite well, except for the last 2 games of this week. Can't win them all. Let me know down below which game surprised you the most. Are your teams? Did your team make the playoffs? Sadly, the Bears did not make it. I didn't expect them to make the playoffs anyways, but definitely expect them to win a whole lot more games than what they did. But that being said, speaking of the Bears, do you think they should trade the number 1 draft pick and get a King's ransom? Because I'm sure someone's going to want to jump up there and take a Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud. With the teams that are in the playoffs, who you got making the Super Bowl? My preseason prediction is still there. I'm going to ride and die with them. It's Buffalo and San Francisco. We'll see how that one kind of goes. Let me know down below. Once you're down there, you can also hit that thumbs up once again. You can also share this video with friends and family to help promote this channel out. Once you subscribe, make sure you click that bell icon, turn on your notification list. Next time I post any more content on my channel. And I will see you next time on Chat Sports Talk.